guys, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing the next video in my palette roulette series in which I pull a palette or two, I utilize it for a couple weeks or so. We're not strict about the rules here. And then I come back to you. I talk to you about the palette, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things I experienced with it. I show you some pictures, some swatches, and then we pull a new palette or two. With that said, today I am going to be going over some DANESSA MYRICKS palettes, and I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. If it does, keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I am a lover of all things high-end colorful beauty and self-care. I am a field leader for Ulta. I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here. Ultimately, I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like talking about makeup because it's awesome and it's fun and it's creative and it soothes my soul, and I hope it soothes your soul in the same way it does mine, and you find that this is a channel that you want to be a part of, because I'd love to have you leap into my YouTube fam, subscribe before you go, and come along for this crazy midlife crisis of mine, because it's a lot of fun here. There's that. If reviewing or listening to me yammer on about some DANESSA MYRICKS palettes sounds like fun to you, let's jump into it. Let's go. I have a lot to tell you, and these are some rather large palettes to talk about, so let's just dig on in. Okay, so I have to be honest with you, I had so much fun with these palettes over the last several weeks, and it kind of pains me to let them go, but I need to keep on moving, little doggy, because I just ordered 7 palettes from Unearthly Cosmetics. Took advantage of their 40% off sale. I sure did, and I'm super excited about it. Palettes are my jam. They're where I like to spend my money the most. Let's talk about these palettes. So first I want to talk about, I don't know, they're both just so exciting. Let's talk about this one first because it's the first one in my book with my notes. This is the DANESSA MYRICKS Lightwork Volume 5 I Am palette. This has 0.66 ounces of product total, 18 shades total, and it is $125 for this palette. I did receive this palette in my lucky bag, so I did not pay $125 for it. I think after using it, I have to be honest with you, I probably would. It's a wonderful palette. The back of this palette just has the information about the palette on it. The front has a nice like metal plaque on it, but it is a cardboard magnetic closure packaging. I love the packaging too, because this is kind of a weird like matte to shimmery finish kind of motif on here, and it reminds me so much of her shimmer shadows actually, or her multi-chromes. The inside of the palette has a nice mirror on it. I haven't taken the plastic coating off it because I just don't do that. It says I Am right here because that is the name of the palette, and these are the shades in this palette, and it's gonna be really hard to see how just different dimensional it is. You can't really see it in the mirror either. These are really freaking amazing shadows. So there are 3 different energies in this palette. So across here you can see it says something on the side here. So the energies in this palette are soft energy in this top row. So these are going to be halos or flakies, and then bold energy here in the middle, which are the shifters, and then you have grounding energy here, which are the chromes or the shimmers. So almost like regulatory like shimmer shades, not necessarily the multichromatic like shifties that she has in her palettes. This is a limited edition palette. This is cruelty-free, gluten-free, and vegan. And it has 10 pans of eyeshadow, these round ones, that are 0.035 ounces a piece, and 8 pans, which are the half pans up here, which are 0.038 ounces a piece, to equal out to 0.66 ounces of product total in this palette. It is a messy palette. I did wipe it before coming to this video, but that doesn't mean anything. As soon as I put my finger in any one of these, it's gonna like explode all over the place. One of the things that I looked at said that this palette was not for use around the eye area, but it doesn't say that anywhere on the packaging that I can tell. So I'm not really 100% sure if any of these are like not for eye use, but I've used every single one of them on my eyes and never had a problem. This was inspired by the radiant light inside of all of us, which I think is a little bit cheesy. All the shade names though are really cool because they are affirmations. So you have resilient, radiant, centered, and the thought process is that you swipe it, you say it, and you believe it. I was like, okay, that's a little bit cheesy. It's a little bit cheesy, but I think it's very cool that she thought through those lenses when making this palette. There are 18 shades in here and 7 finishes, which is also pretty amazing. This palette is certainly best with your finger. Most of these shades are not good on a brush, except for these bottom shades here. I really didn't have a problem picking up on a brush. Any of these top 2 sections, you can pick them up on a brush, but it's more messy than if you just put your finger in and dab it on your eyes in that way. I'm best with a glitter glue, but also didn't require a glitter glue or a wet brush. These have been on my eyes all day long. It is 12:30 a.m. I did put this makeup on at around 11 o'clock this morning, so it's been on for almost 14 hours at this point, and it's still on my eyes. It still looks decent. It is 12:40 in the morning, so if I look rough, that is why. It isn't the makeup's fault. It has now been on for 13 hours, so it should be breaking down at this point, but I haven't done anything to make it look better prior to coming to filming. I think that there's a wee bit of like creasiness here. This is also like my droopy eye, so that doesn't surprise me. But I didn't put a glitter glue on underneath these, and they're holding up rather well. So I do think that they work really good with a glitter glue, but I do not think that it is required. And that said, there's not as much fallout from this palette as you'd expect. Yes, there's fallout, but there's not nearly as much as you'd expect from a palette of this nature, a palette of like just a chromy flakiness to it, a glitteriness to it. And the wear time on these, I mean, I think this is like I said, this is 13 hours in. This is a representation of what the wear time is on these. I didn't see anything less than 10 hours wear on these. And with that 10 hours wear, I did not see any kind of like movement, any flakiness all over my face falling out. And after application fact, I didn't see any kind of voiding. I did see creasing, but like even on this eye, I wouldn't say the creasing is all that bad. This eye, I can see quite a bit of creasing, but again, my droopy eye. The wear time is really quite good. And again, this is not with any glitter glue or anything underneath. The hot tip on this is that the color combos are curated vertically and down each column. So like you should be able to use these 4 colors together, these 4 colors together, these 4, these 4, these 4 vertically in that way, or then across, right? So it says color combos curated vertically or down each column. That is how they're supposed to be used. I today used this one here, and this one here in my eye, as well as this one on the outside here in the outer corner. So like you don't have to go in those vertical things to make them all look really great together either. I had a lot of fun with this palette. This does have 4.5 stars on Beautylish with 7 reviews and 4.8 stars on Beauty Bay with 118 reviews. I would definitely put this in that 4.8 star category. What I like most about this palette versus the other one that I have of this same size and price point is that this one doesn't have the shades in the middle that you have to like water activate, or you have to have some kind of like way of working with them in a special way to get them to work. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see the different like shiftiness that happens with these. I do think that this was a really good palette to work with. I think I've said this before, from a mainstream multi-chrome standpoint, DANESSA MYRICKS is as good as it's going to get for you. When I think of the price of like a Pat McGrath palette versus a DANESSA MYRICKS palette, I would tell you DANESSA MYRICKS 100%, hands down, is worth the money. Whereas I don't really necessarily think that Pat McGrath is worth the money that you have to pay to get her large palettes. I think a good portion of the reason for that is, I mean, just look at this palette. It is cardboard packaging. Yes, it has this like luxe metal plating on the front of it to make it look a little bit more upscale. But then when you open it up, you are getting 18 shadows, and you still have a large mirror. The packaging still doesn't look like it is cheap by any means, but I think that Pat McGrath spends so much money on the packaging piece of her palettes, and that is what's getting in the way of her offering better palettes, because a good portion of the marketing and the manufacturing of her palettes is in the palette component and not necessarily the formulations and the shadows that go into her palettes. That's not to say that her palettes are bad palettes. I just think that they're not worth the money, and her special shades do not hold a candle to DANESSA MYRICKS, in my humble opinion. With that said, let's look at these shades real quick. So let's flash up my swatches for you. The first 5 are from the soft energies, so these are going to be the halos or flaky shadows, and these are quite a bit flaky, and like I said, you put your finger into them and they totally explode in the pan. We have Resilient, which is a glacier blue to lilac duochrome. This was a favorite. Well, they were all favorites, so I'm not going to continue to say this was a favorite because I loved every single shadow in this palette. We have Radiant, which is an apricot to chartreuse duochrome. I would say that this is a really light apricot to chartreuse duochrome. It is what's in my inner corner or the intersection of my eye today. I don't think it has as much chartreusiness to it as it boasts to have in the description of the shade, but it is still really pretty. Then we have Centered, which is a champagne-y peach, a little less of a duochrome nature to this one, but still really pretty. We have Protected, which is an opal pink to blue duochrome. Then we have Evolving, which is a minty like greeny gold. This is more of just a single like shimmer type shadow. It does have that like green to gold, but mostly because the gold in it is like the shimmers, not so much that it's a secondary color that you're pulling from the shadow. In the bold energy section, which are going to be your shifters, and these are pretty good shifters, we have Strong, which is a cerulean blue to violet duochrome. We have Brave, which is a seafoam green to like a pinky duochrome. We have Fierce, which is a copper red to green duochrome, and then Fearless, which is a hot corally peach to an antique green, like almost like bronzy green duochrome. Then we have Love, which is a pink to green duochrome, and Healed, which is an orchid purple to smoky green duochrome. Inspiring, which is a lilac to kind of like a gunmetal gray duochrome, and Abundant, which is an emerald green to deep violet duochrome. And I would say that the 8 in that row are more multichromatic than they are duochrome, meaning you're going to catch a whole lot of glimpses of other shades in those shadows beyond the 2 that are listed on the website and on the packaging. The last row is the grounding energy, and these are going to be more of like metallics and regulatory shimmers. Although I do think that some of them have a little bit of shiftiness to them as well. So the first one is Invincible, which is a smoky silver metallic. This is just straight up chrome on your lid space. Then we have Unstoppable, which is a terracotta red shimmer. I do think that it has a little bit of a peachy flip to it. Then we have Powerful, which is a deep red to a kind of bronzy duochrome shadow. Then we have Unbreakable, which is the raspberry with pink, like baby pink shimmers in it. And then we have Enough, which is an olive green shimmer. And those ones are just really kind of what would be considered the quote unquote boring shadows in this palette, but they are all so, so beautiful. I had such a good time with that palette, but again, like most DANESSA MYRICKS palettes, this palette is going to be a complementary palette to other palettes that you have in your collection. It's not ever going to be a standalone palette for most people, myself included, but I really love it. Don't have anything bad to say about it. Definitely think it's worth $125, but I don't think that you can get it anymore. You might be able to pick it up on like resale websites like Mercari or something like that. However, with that said, I do not think that anybody should spend more than what the cost of the palette is. So don't, it's not worth $200 or $300. It's worth $125. If it's more than that, don't think about it. The second palette I have to go over is also a DANESSA MYRICKS palette. This is the DANESSA MYRICKS Groundwork Blooming palette. This does have also a beautiful like pink, almost faux, like weathered leather cardboard packaging with a nice metal plate on the front of it that tells you it's DANESSA MYRICKS. I think that she's doing that with all of her palettes these days. It does have little stuff like stamped into this that tells you that it is a pomade and powder palette, and then it has information on the back about the palette. When you open it up, it looks like this. It does have a mirror, and this is what the palette looks like. This palette is $65. It does have 0.91 ounces of total product in it. It has 10 shades, but each one of those shades has 2 different formulations. So the big pan is the Velvet Pomades. These are 0.063 ounces of product in each one of those. And then the smaller pan is the Shape and Fix powder of the same color. And those pans are 0.028 ounces. And this palette was built for brows, face, lips, and eyes. It is a multi-use pomade and powder palette. I have used it on my cheeks, I have used it on my lips, and I have used it on my eyes, and I am currently wearing these 2 shades as well as this one on my eyes today, and this is used as like the brown liner on my eyes as well today. I really quite like this palette, and I didn't think I was going to like this palette, honestly, after I used it for the first time. And the reason why is because I went hard in one of these pomades and then couldn't blend it out. Didn't know what I was doing. I just don't think that I've never used a pomade like this on my eyes as a shadow. This reminds me a lot of the formulation of the KVD like Super Brows, like these guys, only maybe a little bit more powdery. They're a little bit more velvety than the KVD Super Brow products. They are super high pigment, super easy to use and apply once you get the hang of it. It is a learning curve though. They blend really, really easy, and they have a great performance overall. I didn't notice any kind of creasing out of them. This eye look, again, has been on for 13 hours. This eye is creasing. I can see that quite a bit. This one has a slight bit of creasing. Let me pull out a mirror here. Actually, I think that I'm seeing things, but neither one of them really has any creasing going on, which is crazy sauce to me. Like I said, I put this eye look on about 11 o'clock this morning, and it is now 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's been on 14 hours, and I've not touched it up at all. Pinky swear. Both these palettes are phenomenal palettes. This performs really well without a primer. It also performs fine with a primer. I typically will wear primer every single time I put on eyeshadow. I forget sometimes to not, but this acts almost as if it's a primer with the creams underneath any of the powders. It has a really nice aspect of blurring to it on the skin, especially if you're using it as like a lipstick or a cheek product. As far as the pomades go, I would say wear time without the powder is only slightly better than wear time with the powder. One thing that I did notice is in some sections, so like this right here, let me get a pen here. This section right here is the powder. Right above it, there's a slight orange tint, which is the pomade. I do think that the pomade lasts less long than the powder does if you're not putting a powder over the top of it. I do think that the powder lasts literally forever if you're putting it over the top of the pomade, and also lasts quite a bit when you aren't putting it over the pomade. But overall, there's very little fading with the powders, whereas with the pomades, you don't really see them all that. There is some like discrepancies on the inside where it's all pomade and not powder, that it does appear like there's a little bit of voiding going on in here where I didn't place powder over the top of the pomade. So I would say probably 8-ish hours is where I started noticing that the pomade was kind of starting to disappear when I was wearing it on a normal day. And set with the powders though, it truly can probably last a lifetime. With that said, there's no movement or fading. Obviously this is still a bright orange. This is still the bright orange that it was when I put it on this morning. And again, I've not touched it up. I also love about it is I don't think that it exacerbates any kind of texture. It's super easy to use with your brush or your finger. I would say with a brush, you have to be very aware of how much you're digging into the pomade, because I went crazy ham on this one here, and there's quite a bit of a divot in there, and that's because I didn't really realize how soft it was underneath my brush. The powders are the smaller of the pans, and I don't necessarily love that. They are pigmented, they are blendable, they are very, very soft. They work well with the pomades. They also work well with other powders. They work well with each other and others. Each section has these little divots where you can pop them out. And when you pop them out, each one of these pans is already labeled on the back side with what shade they are and what palette they're from and all the information that you need on that. I love that specifically because I know that for like Natasha Denona's palettes that have removable pans, you have to figure out how to get a name on the back of that eyeshadow palette, or that eyeshadow, that little tiny eyeshadow, and I like that for these. I don't 100% love using this on my cheeks. And the biggest reason why is because when I put a cream product on my cheek, I like to do it with a brush, and they're just not big enough for a brush. So then when I think about using a sponge, then I run the risk of getting the matte wet because my sponge is wet. I also don't like using the powders on my cheeks because literally the pan is just too small. I think this is genius, and it makes me want the neutral one as well. So I will likely pick up the neutral one in the next Sephora sale because I really quite loved this palette. It is a palette that I could see living on my, especially the neutral one. I think I could see it living on my vanity at all times and just utilizing it as a staple in my collection for whatever reason. This is a very user-friendly palette. I would definitely recommend it for beginners. I think that it is an easy palette to use for beginners once you get the hang of how much of those pomades you need. It's a really easy cream eyeshadow to apply. It also is a really easy cream eyeshadow that if you get too much on your brush, i.e. when I dug into this shade specifically, I got way too much on my brush, slapped it on my eye and was like, holy hell, there's so much product there, but I was able to pull it out, make it look amazing, and it blended so beautifully on my eyes, and a little tiny bit of product goes such a long way that I think it could be very helpful for users that are new to the makeup world and or cream eyeshadows on your eyes. All the finishes in this are matte. There is no sheeniness to it, no shimmeriness to it. So I also think that this could potentially be, for many people's collections, a complementary palette for whatever else that you're doing. But I love that this is an all matte palette with two different kinds of textures to go with all of my all shimmer palettes from Danessa, but also I have a lot of all shimmer palettes from other brands as well. And these tones are my kind of tones. So even though this is a palette that is, you know, on the pinky side, there's still a lot of like cool, you know, coolness to this palette, as well as the warmth in this palette. There's a lot of deeper like rosy brown tones that come across as burgundies in this palette. There's also like just some that straight up look brown as well. I think that this is just a really great versatile palette for many, many reasons. I love that it has removable pans. I love that those removable pans are all marked. And I also love that there's absolutely no fallout with this palette at all. Listen, the looks that I was able to create with these two palettes over the last several weeks, I don't think I went out one time and didn't get a compliment on my eye look. I also have used this on lipstick. I was complimented on the lipstick that I was utilizing this palette to achieve multiple times as well. Like, it's just a really good palette. Both of them are really good palettes. This one, $65. It's certainly worth $65. There's 0.91 ounces of product in this, which is, you know, more than what's in this. Granted, these are all special shades, but it's half of the price. So I think that it is hands down one of my favorite palettes that I've used this year. Okay, let's talk about the shades in here. So I've swatched the cream and the powder right next to each other. You can see the cream and the powder of the same shade name, whether it's the cream or the powder. So we have Crush, which is a soft daisy pink shade. Then we have Smitten, which is a mauve-y, rosebuddy pink shade. Then we have Dreamy, which is a blushing pink peony shade. Then we have Allure, which is described as a medium mauve orchid, which this reminds me of an orchid shade. Then we have Desire, which is a soft peachy dahlia, which is what is in my eye look today. I love this color, actually. I wear it quite often. It matches my hair real well. Then we have Adorn, which is a burgundy red hibiscus. Lovesick is described as a burnt garnet tulip. Bliss, described as a toasted burgundy gladiola. Evermore is a dark mahogany cosmos. And Exo is a blackberry calla lily. I mean, truly beautiful. Loved both of these palettes. Again, the Danessa Groundwork Blooming makes me want the Groundwork, the Groundwork Neutrals, I don't know what it's called, palette, but, and I will have that in my collection. I had a really good time the last few weeks And I think you'll see that in the pictures that you've seen throughout this video. I'm gonna go pull new palettes. I'll be right back. These have been in my drawer of shame for far too long, and I've had some color, a lot of color over the last couple weeks, last couple months actually. So we're gonna go with something a little more on the neutral side. So we're pulling the Patrick Star One Size Visionary palette out. This I got in a FabFitFun, I do believe. I'm embarrassed to say it's been in my drawer of shame for probably 2 years, at least a year. I haven't been subscribed to FabFitFun in over a year. Kind of dig that it's kind of got this wonkiness as far as, like, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it like has like this V shape down at the bottom. You're gonna have to store it like this, or I'm gonna have to store it like this. Anyways, this is what the palette looks like. Very plain, a little bit warm. I think that this is a good, I think that this is a good fall palette, but I also think it could lean very bronzy neutral for summer. And it's just a palette that I think will also partner well with the other one that I want to bring in, which is the Viseart Petite Pro Do. How do you say that? I think these will partner very, very well. And I need to get them used. If I continue just to go after the fun stuff, I'm never going to see them used. And like I said, this one's been in there for probably 2 years. This one has been in there, I would say, probably a year or more. I can't remember where I got this one though, so I could be totally blowing smoke up your butt. These are the two palettes that I'll be utilizing for the next palette roulette. These are really easy palettes to use, so I don't think it'll take me long to get use out of them both as I do in the palette roulette series, in order to come at them with a review, which is, you know, making sure I complete multiple eye looks, making sure that I utilize every single shade in every single palette, and that I have my thoughts and opinions solidified on whether it's a good palette for, you know, the money, for what it offers, etc., etc. Much like all the things that you've heard for the DANESSA MYRICKS palettes. I still don't think it'll take me very long, whereas these ones took me a good, I think I had them in use via palette roulette for like 3 weeks. I don't think that those two will take that long. With that said, I am excited to get some use out of that Patrick Star one, because I've never used anything from One Size. So it'll be a brand new makeup product for me, brand new makeup brand for me. And it's been sitting here in my collection the whole dang time. So there's that. Anyways, with that being said, that is it. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Have you tried these palettes from DANESSA MYRICKS? I would be interested to hear what you have to say, what your thoughts and opinions are on them. So don't forget to hit me up down in the comment section. I do answer every single comment that comes my way, so I would love to hear from you down there. Have you used either one of those palettes that I just showcased that I'll be reviewing next time? If so, I would love to hear your thoughts on those as well. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining me today. I know you don't have to. It warms my heart so very much that you do. Just share the video out if you think somebody would love to watch it. If you think somebody would love my channel, don't forget to tell them about me. I am trying to hit 2K before my birthday in September, and I know that we can get there. We just have to lock arms and do it together, but I definitely know that we can get there. I just bit my lip. With that said, I think it's about time. I think I can go to bed now. I am getting tired, you can tell, because my wonky eye is getting really, really lazy. And it doesn't want to stay open. It just wants to hover there in this like perpetually droopy state. I'm gonna go to bed now. Thank you guys for joining me so much again. I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life out there, enjoying summer, had a great 4th, all the things. And until next time, friends, Bye.